Come into my dungeon studio, home of the Power Rack podcast, and me, your host, Tod Becraft. And welcome to episode 1. Today, I have female powerlifter Natalie Natty Freed. I'm going to read a little bit on her resume here. She's been powerlifting competitively since 2006, originally from Pennsylvania, then moved to Texas, and now resides in Columbus, Ohio. Natty has set state, national, and world records across multiple federations in her powerlifting career, primarily in the 103 and 114 pound classes. In her free time, she likes to do puzzles, goes to the shooting range, and takes pictures of food, but she also spends a lot of time cooking and eating that food. She lives with her husband, Brian, their dogs, Eva and Edie, 3 koi fish, and her composting worms. That must be quite a household with trying to take care of those composting worms. It's hard to keep them in line.
Oh yeah, they like watching them. Brian's not real thrilled they're in the house, but
they actually are in the house. I wasn't sure about that. Oh man, well, it sounds like he's very tolerant of you and your family members. So, hey, Natty, I've known you since the days of MySpace. That was a long time ago. What, you were like maybe 10, 12 years old? I'm referring to an article that we'll talk about later that said you look like you're 12 years old. I don't know if you remember which art, but we'll talk about that. But hey, let's start off with how you got into powerlifting, but we'll go even further back than that. Let's talk about high school for you. First of all, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Because you always appear really young.
Yeah, 15. Now I'm 35.
Wow, amazing. So let's go into your memory banks and go clear back to high school and tell me, like, did you do sports and what was high school like for you?
Yeah, so I played soccer and ran and threw for track. I wasn't very good. I rode horses. And yeah.
So you played soccer. So when did you start like finding weightlifting and start doing that? Like, how did you come across the weights?
Like we had a pretty nice weight room. It was tiny, but we got to use a weight room for soccer and for track in high school, in middle school and high school. So I kind of started learning there, and it wasn't when I started competing, but it was where I kind of learned about the basic lifts and everything.
So was it part of a PE class or was it just on your own then?
No, it was kind of part of conditioning for the sports that I played.
Which was, again, soccer and what else did you?
Track.
Oh, for track. You did track. Okay. What'd you do when you ran track? What was your
I I was a sprinter and I threw javelin.
Wow.
I I started pole vaulting and then I wasn't allowed to unless I wore a helmet because I got too many concussions and I didn't want to wear a helmet.
Oh my God. What your concussions? When was that from soccer then?
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that, and I won't go into a tangent on this, but anyone who follows me knows how into like traps and neck work I am, right? And when people hear the word concussions, they think football and this and that. Well, football has their concussion rate really high for different reasons. But women's soccer is one of the highest for concussions because of the size of a woman's head versus their neck, the ratio, if you measure it, the size of a woman's head is about the same as a man's. But if you measure their necks are generally 2 inch on average, 2 inches smaller than a man's. So a woman, female, has to hold their head up, which is about an average of 11 pounds with a smaller neck than a male. So, but yeah, women's soccer is one of the highest sports for concussions. And it's interesting that you actually had that happen. But you seem okay now. So again, so you started weightlifting a little bit. So how did powerlifting come into that? Because here you are, you're a little gal that's working out. What'd you weigh then before lifting? Like in high school?
Probably, around 100 to 100, about the same thing I weigh when I'm lifting now.
Okay.
Really?
So you
different composition.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely have more muscle now, I'm sure. So you're working out at the gym in high school, and somehow powerlifting came about. You started powerlifting in 2006? So when did you graduate high school?
2003.
So 2006, actually, when you started competing. Did you start training? If you're like me, I started training powerlifting as I was training for my first contest. Was that what you did, or did you powerlift before you found a contest?
So I think I'm really not good at remembering things, but I think it was about 7 months before my first meet that I started training for powerlifting. I was in college. In 2004, I was in a pretty bad car accident.
Oh, wow.
I was in the hospital at learning how to walk up steps again and sit up in bed. And
wow.
So I went through a lot of rehab after that, and it just got me to where, people tell you, okay, well, now you can't do this anymore and you can't do this anymore. And, you're not going to be lifting whatever. And so once I got through that physical therapy and everything, and it was with UPMC Sports Medicine, so that was pretty awesome. And I moved on from that and got in the gym as fast as I could and started lifting.
Good for you. So then at that point, it sounds like were you still in high school at that point, or was that after high school?
College.
Oh, wow. Okay. So at that point, you're just getting back to get stronger again because you've been in that car wreck and in the hospital and all that. So you're training, and then all of a sudden you're like, so you must have started hitting the big three. You must start deadlifting, squatting, and that must have been part of your program, right? And
yeah. And a lot of guys at the gym that I ended up lifting in were would compete and at least training in powerlifting. So it was kind of like what I was around when I was in the gym. And
yeah,
it was one of those things where everybody's like, wow, you should try competing. You're really good. And like, don't want to hear it just because I'm not a 300-pound guy lifting as much as you. You don't need to tell me how good I am. And from that, I did try a meet. And
so what was the first meet, and how did you find out about it and decide to start training for it?
So it was one that was local to where I was from. It was in Newcastle in Pennsylvania, and
Okay.
it was a Wabdo meet. And
Okay.
so I had just looked, that's back with like Powerlifting USA, and where you could go to the back and look at the meets that were listed. And I looked for one that was close to home and coming up soon. So,
Wow. That's interesting. You may not be aware, but I live here in Oregon, in the Northwest Territory, and Gus Rethwish, who is the owner of Wabdell, started Wabdell here in this state of Oregon in the Northwest, and really branched it out and had his first world championship, his first national championships here, his first world championships, and all that. I can't remember the year, but it had to have been fairly close to the time that you were doing your thing. Yeah, so interesting with Wabdo Federation. I think it's a really good. It's of course they don't have squats for those that are watching that don't realize that, but it's a bench and deadlift federation. But the camaraderie in that federation is really good. And Gus, if you know Gus, he's a pretty neat guy.
Yeah.
So, but okay, cool. So, what weight class were you at that contest? Do you remember?
That was I was 105.
105. Okay.
Yeah. I showed up to weigh in, and everybody was asking me to pay for the like watching and like being a spectator. It's like, I'm lifting here.
Are you here to watch your dad lift, little girl?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna get best lifter award at this meet.
Yeah.
What are your, just in powerlifting in general, not necessarily that contest, but in general, tell the audience your best lifts, like what weight class and what your best lifts are.
So when I lifted in gear, I deadlifted 352. Around 110-ish. It was over 3 times body weight.
Wow, very nice. Very nice. Geez, that's actually big. Wow.
Yeah, I think my biggest competition squat was 300. There it is. And let's see, for bench, I think I benched 209.
Oops, let me bring you back here. Okay, there you go. Sorry. So some of your, let's see, what are your best lifts? Oh, contest memories. Let's talk about that. What do you have like a really nice contest memory? Like there's a contest, everything came together really well for you, and or just any funny thing happen, anything?
Well, here, I mean, I think as far as like really, really good contests, I think I really enjoyed the first Arnold that I lifted at.
There you go. Yeah.
USAPL Raw, and that was really fun. Like lots of people. That was a good time. I think my most memorable one was actually Wabdell Worlds when it was in Anaheim.
Okay.
And the night before, I had gone out and ate, because it's 24-hour weigh-in. So I weighed in, I went to a restaurant, ate some, I think, seared tuna and a salad, and got really sick. And puked the entire night, thinking like, what am I doing? What's going to happen tomorrow? And I got up in the morning and lifted really well after I ate half a piece of bread. I don't know how that happened.
Wow.
Would not recommend it, but it was very memorable.
Yeah, no kidding. You're probably wanting to find Gus and say, Gus, can I weigh in again? Because you probably would have been the weight class lower.
No kidding.
Yeah. What about any, not that I like to talk about negative stuff, but any bad contest experiences, like a contest you just, it wasn't on for you, or you had a bad mishap or anything like that?
Yeah, luckily I've never had something really, really go wrong, like dangerous wise. I think Yeah, some meets it's just like that whole day, no matter what you do, it's just not working for you. I lifted in Ohio one time with gear, and it was a meet that a lot of people weren't wearing gear. So I squatted one of my best squats and went into bench, and like I bring the bar down, and it's motionless except it's like kind of moving a little bit because I have gear and it's really hard to bring it down, and they're just not calling it. So I was just sitting there, and I think I did it twice, and I got the lift twice, except the call wasn't there. They were saying it wasn't motionless. So I was really upset about it, and I ended up bombing out of the meet because of bench.
Wow. Did you travel to that contest?
A couple hours.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't living in Ohio at that point, so I just remember being so mad that they're like, "You can still deadlift." I'm like, no, not gonna do it.
Wow. Hey, Natty, just so the audience understands, especially the powerlifting audience, when you talk about geared, tell the audience what you mean, because as you know, there's minimal amount of gear, like one ply shirts and stuff like that, and there's also the one triple ply shirts,
Yeah.
same with the squat suits and things like that. So when you talk about you wearing gear, what did that consist of?
I've only done single ply. Like, I've some people have asked me, why don't you try like multiply, double? I don't know. I'm a little person. Once you get up that high in the gear, I don't really know how much that's going to do for me that's worth it.
Good point. Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Most of my lifting was done raw, and then my last 3 contests before I retired was done in like a $36 Inzer blast shirt, which is like the most basic one you can get. I'm not sure he sells those anymore. But your Arnold experience, let's touch on that again a little bit. What was that like? Because I know the audience there is just you. Oh, and did you have to qualify for it or get an invite, or how'd that work?
Yeah. I think that's by invite. You have to have a qualifying total.
Okay. Lifting in front of an audience that big, because I'm assuming your biggest audience you've lifted under. Is that right?
I think Anaheim, there might have been more people I had lifted there first, but this is the second like real big. And I mean, it was not everybody at the Arnold is there watching you, but it's just such an overwhelming crowd of people for the entire expo that it was one of the first ones to just a couple years later, with the video screens and lights and everything, that it wasn't like the cards that people put up like when you lift like 170. It was like on a big screen. And
right. Wow. Yeah. And as long as we're still talking about contests, what contest was this?
That's one of the Raw Nationals I did. I think that was in Spokane in 2018.
Gosh, yeah, I remember talking with you a little bit via email, and you were going to go do that. Was the weather real bad then? I'm trying to remember why I didn't go there to actually meet you and just watch the lifting. Was the weather?
It was cold. I remember I didn't have a car, so I walked around a lot. So it wasn't that bad, but
okay. I just think maybe there was snow or something. I don't know. Do you remember what time of year it was?
October-ish.
Yeah. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember right, that wasn't one of your best or favorite meets. Is that right? Or was it okay?
It was all right. The first Raw Nationals I lifted in, I was really not impressed with myself. It was one in Virginia years before. So this one was actually, I lifted prime time, so it was a challenge to fly across the country, be 3-4 hours different, and then be lifting in the evening because I don't stay up late. So,
Yeah. Didn't you fly and everything on your own too? Did no one went with you on that one? Yeah, I remember you talking about that. I'm like, oh man, I feel bad for this little gal. But,
yeah,
fly.
like my coach was there, and like
Okay.
I knew people there, but
Okay.
I traveled on my own.
Okay. Let's talk about your training and your training split. Like, let's talk about just your off season first. Like your off season, how many days a week do you work out? What do you do on those days, or do you even have a plan on the off season? Like, tell me about your off season training split.
So I have to have a plan, no matter what I'm doing. Like even if it's going to the grocery store, because I just get like
That's awesome.
comatose.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I need to have something planned out. But there's been times that I've done 4 days a week, just time wise to get it in. But I generally stick to 3 days a week.
Hmm. How's that split up? Like, how do you do your body parts?
I've changed it up differently, but I always end up going back to like the big three, the squat day, the bench day, deadlifting. But it's I guess right now I do a little bit of variations on each day.
Okay.
Um,
What about on season? Does that change much when you're training for a contest? Let's say 8 to 12 weeks out from a contest. Do you add more days? Do you keep with those same days? And tell me about that.
I don't really add many days. I guess you could say I do if I pay more attention to stretching and rehab stuff and things that I don't really do if I don't plan them in as much as I should. So I do more of that, but cutting down on accessories and more getting to focus on the competition lifts and less reps. That's my favorite part.
Okay. Off season, what do you keep your reps at typically?
Oh, I really like, going above 10 reps is like cardio to me.
Okay.
but I will go up, depending on what it is. You're hard pressed to find me going past 20.
And
not
then,
not much into the bodybuilder style. Um,
so then when your contest prep starts, do you instantly drop the reps, let's say to tens, and then kind of go down from there as the weeks progress? Okay.
mhm.
Well, again, anyone that knows me knows I'm into shrugs and traps and neck. And so look what I found. Found a picture of you doing shrugs.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Talk about why you include shrugs into your training, and do you do that just for some off-season stuff? Do you do it during the season? And why do you feel it's important to add that in?
That like shrugs and like rack pulls are one of my favorites. Like that's an important part, especially off season, so that you're building all that for when you need it. But it's not something that I really stop until a couple weeks. Not that I do shrugs every single week, but some kind of variation of something like that.
Yeah, good for you. And the reason just so the audience knows, the reason you stop it going into contest training, or at least when the contest gets close, is you're at that point you're starting to eliminate a lot of accessory exercises for recovery. So that because your lifts on the basic lifts, the squat, bench, and deadlifts are getting heavier, and so obviously you need more recovery. So you start backing off, getting rid of a lot of the assistance work, and that's pretty common with people that work out. So just so the audience realize that. And speaking of traps, I got to thank you for this.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome. I appreciate that. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Has COVID affected your training at all? And how has it? Because obviously it has to some degree. It's affected.
Yeah.
So were you training at a gym before it hit? and then kind of did your own thing at home?
Yeah, so it kind of came in handy. I've been for years and years. I've been collecting things little by little, equipment, being picky, picking good stuff, but like old good stuff because I don't know. No, I can't afford to put up a whole gym like brand new, but I've kind of been collecting things little by little, and so when all that hit and the gyms were closed in Ohio, I was lucky enough to have a combo rack at my house, so that I can deadlift, I can do my bench, my squats at home, which is there's pros and cons, but I stayed at my gym until a couple weeks ago. I'm still a member. I haven't been there in a while, and I kind of miss it. I've been lifting at 614 barbell in Columbus, and it's just between like my husband works in a hospital, so that, and he would get exposed to somebody, and I wouldn't want to go in the gym just in case. And so
Well, that's nice of you to think of other people like that.
yeah, and not like I was around somebody at my work a little bit after that, and so it was just I've gotten used to lifting at home now. It's a small room, but it's a bedroom, so it's warm.
Yeah. Well, you seem to have a pretty good crew. I'm assuming that's at your home.
Yeah, that's actually when I was in the basement at my old house. But yeah, it's got my workout partners.
And we'll talk about your love for animals towards the end here. While we're talking about contest training, I came across this poster. Talk about this real quick.
Yeah, so that was a USPA meet. I've lifted in a couple different federations. Sometimes it just comes down to like if I want to lift in a meet, I need something that's working with my schedule and it's going to be half decent federation. And so USPA is one that I've lifted in a little bit, and this meet was in Cleveland. I guess I'd lifted at this meet years before, and I think won best lifter. And I think it came in second in that one, actually. But it was an honor to be on the meet poster.
I was going to say, did you know you were going to be on, or did it just come out and there you were? And
yeah, no, I knew ahead of time.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. It's a cool picture too. For me, my fuck mental weakness brand that I have going and all that, mental mind body connection is really big for me, and strengthening the mind as much as the body, whether in sports or in life, is really important. So I definitely want to delve into that a little bit with you. Like for you, what kind of mental? I won't ask you if you do, because I know you must, because you're a top-notch lifter. So what is your mental preparation that you do? Do you do any visualization, goal setting, things like that? And what is it you do? And how much time do you spend preparing the mind for your lifts as much as your body?
So yeah, like I definitely do a lot of that. It's mental. The mental game is a big part. I mean, I know you know that. So it depends on if it's a meet that's coming up. I think about it a lot, like during my day, like during at work, and it's always like in the back of my head, kind of like, you're thinking about the lifts and how. I don't know how this is going to sound weird, but kind of like how your muscles feel when you're going through the lift and you're doing it the right way. But I'll think about that enough that I'm ready to have a panic attack by the day before.
I can relate.
And but like for for like a gym day, just like a, say like heavy, like, what was it? Yesterday, I did some heavy-ish block pulls, deadlifts, and I use my music. That's one of the nice things about being at home. You don't have the motivation of all the people at the gym and everything, but you can pick the music.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of, I have my music I'll listen to when it's just like a normal day, and then when it gets to be like this is business, you get to the different music. And
Real quick, what is your music of choice for when it's like time to get ready for the big lifts?
I like Lamb of God. I really like Devil Driver, a lot of the heavy stuff like that. When it's a little less intense, I'll go with Black Label Society, some Aussie. If it's just a really light day, I go with my old country.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny you say that, and we kind of chuckle about it, but if people really focus on what you just said, there's the different phases and the different music you add to those phases as the intensity gets more and more. Then when you're less intense and just don't need to be in that high adrenaline aggressive mode, the music changes with that. So that's very interesting. So that's a mental preparation right there that you may or may not have even realized you're doing, but it's definitely that's one thing I do too, is attach music to my lifting and certain songs, AC/DC's Let's Get It Up as an example. Back in my lifting days, that album came out in like 1983, and I was always listening to that song. It has nothing to do with weightlifting, but just that the main verse, Let's Get It Up, I'd always listen to that on deadlift day, for instance. So there's always that connection with music in the lifter's world, if they allow it to be anyway.
Yeah.
And staying on the subject of mental preparation, there's a couple of pictures here that are pretty cool. I love this picture of you right here. Any idea like what you might be thinking about right there? Because obviously you're in a mode of either you just got done or you're just getting ready to lift. You're obviously in a mode of, to me, it looks like you're getting ready to lift. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was.
Like in this, I mean, obviously at this exact moment in time, you're not going to know exactly what you're thinking, but in general, when you're walking up and getting ready to lift, like, and just like you are here, what's going on in your head? What are you thinking about?
So a lot of times, like, I really kind of blank out my mind or something. It's a lot like when I was little, I competed in air pistol, and they taught you to kind of, you have to regulate your breathing and just, it's almost like you're shutting down part of your brain that you're not paying attention, like nothing exists outside of what you're doing at that point in time, and that like narrowing in of everything. And that's kind of, I do the same thing when I'm lifting, when I'm getting ready for a lift. I'm really big on doing everything the same way where it's just when it gets into the muscle memory, I guess, walking up to the bar the same way and just like closing everything off.
Very good example. You're right. Muscle memory and memory of the mind too. When having it blend together like that, that was actually really good. I'm glad I asked you that question. Another picture here I really liked, and I'm guessing it was maybe after a lift.
Yeah.
I love that picture because I don't know what's going on here. What's in your mind? What's happened physically? What's going on?
Well, that is after I was lifting, and it looks like I didn't even undo my belt.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's just like that, like return of everything. Like you catch your breath, you're processing. Okay, how did that feel? How did that go? What am I doing next? That was in training. So
it's such a neat picture because you can see what you're describing in that picture, and it looks like you had an all-out effort also, and you're just like almost completely depleted from having lifted maybe a heavy weight or lots of reps with the weight or something. It's just kind of a really neat picture that shows a lot in that picture if you read into it, in my opinion. So let's talk about diet and nutrition, because I want to show the magazine here. And by the way, they say she may look like she's 12 years old. When you read that, were you okay with them saying that, or
yeah, because I hear it all the time, not even just with lifting or with, I've done a couple photo shoots. But yeah, I've heard that my whole life, and I still hear it, and people say, there's going to be a day that you're happy about that. And
yeah.
So I guess I'm happy about it.
Well, as far as your diet and nutrition, just so the audience knows, what'd you weigh? First of all, what'd you weigh in this picture? This is a great picture showing your abs, as was the last one too. But this one shows your abs and stuff really well. Shows how lean and muscular you really are. What'd you weigh in this picture?
I would say that's about 114-ish.
Wow. So actually, for you were a little bit bulked
heavier.
up.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. So, what's your height, Natty?
I'm a little under 5 feet.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was always pictured 5'2" for some reason. I don't know why that stuck in my.
Well,
wow.
That's what my driver's license says. When I went to get my driver's license, the first time the guy said, "What do you say we add on some inches?"
Oh my gosh.
Why do we do that?
Wow. So diet and nutrition. Let's talk about that. Let's just go. I know you eat really clean, first of all, because you do post a lot of pictures of your food and stuff on social media, which is actually good, because I'm actually in a phase right now where I'm trying to get leaner and lose some weight, because I'm older now, and my last annual physical, so I had some blood work that came back, that could be a little better. They were, just above not being real good. So they're still in a position of being able to be controlled. So I actually enjoy seeing someone like yourself, who eats good for the most part that I know of, posting stuff like that, because it gives me ideas. Oh, okay, that looks pretty good. I can try that. So unless it really doesn't change much, let's go with like off-season diet. Like, what is typical for you? Well, today I'm interrupting your day, but let's say yesterday, did you trained yesterday, right? Because you said something about you trained it. Mm-hmm. So walk me through, like, you woke up in the morning, what'd you eat? And then when did you work out? And then tell me your meals surrounding that workout.
All right. So I usually eat breakfast between like 6:30, 7 every day. Like, I get up and eat breakfast. And that is important to me, because the day doesn't start right without it. So a lot of times I'll eat 4 to 5 times a day, sometimes more, but when I add more than that, it kind of gets, my day isn't quite that long. So I don't like even if it's a shake or something right before bed, I don't really do that. So I'll get up, I'll eat breakfast, usually vegetables, squash, meat, spicy, sauerkraut always in the morning.
And just, what's your reason for doing that? I know it's really good for the digestive system. Is that why you?
I mean, it is, but I just really like it too. And it's the way, like, I'll sit down and work out, like, in general here, because you don't want to have all your carbs in one meal and like none in another one. So I try to spread it out evenly, and that's just the meal that works out the best for eating that, because I'm not at work around other people.
Okay. Right. So you had your breakfast, and then what's next for you? Are you going to the gym? Do you do your workout, or you're home? Or you have another meal before that?
In the ideal world, I I would lift about 2 hours after breakfast, but it usually ends up that I'll eat um, after one of my lunches, especially on days that I work. So I'll eat Greek yogurt maybe 3.5 hours later with some fruit and some squash and um,
So you have your breakfast, then you go to work. So you're not so you work a day shift, obviously.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you go to work, you have your lunch, and then
Mhm.
after that, do you eat again?
So that's first lunch. It's kind of
Okay.
like The Hobbit or something, right? And then then I'll have my second lunch around 2 or 3, and I do the same. I do a lot of meal prep. You have to if you're cooking most of your food and working and doing everything. And so a lot of times that meal is something where I have meat. I do mostly turkey, chicken right now. Um, so I'll cook up a whole bunch of meat, a whole bunch of vegetables, and season it with something. I don't eat hardly any salt, so I don't get a lot of sauces that from the store. I'll make stuff on my own, but I use a lot of really hot salsa and spicy stuff. But I'll put those into these little glass containers and freeze them. So when I'm getting my lunch ready in the morning, I grab some yogurt and grab a block of frozen meat and vegetables, and I'm off to work.
Wow. So then that's second lunch. So then I'm assuming your work day is winding down, correct?
Yeah,
And so
yeah, and
you
then
at that point you come home first or go well, I guess now
yeah,
you would because the gym's at home, but
yeah, yeah. But I'll leave work and hopefully be able to time it so that I can get to the gym or get home to lift within. It depends what I'm lifting and what I just ate, but an hour and a half to 2 hours after
okay.
is when I'll lift.
And then after that, you let's I keep your gym is your home right now because of the shutdowns and stuff. But let's go back to when you trained at a gym. So are you
Yeah.
drinking a protein shake on the way home from the gym after, or are you going home and having a meal at that point?
So I have I don't do a whole lot of that right now. I've done different things obviously through the years, but for right now, I'll drink like a branch chain amino, like glutamine kind of drink that doesn't have caffeine or anything crazy. I try to stay away from food colorings and sweeteners and stuff like that. So I try to keep it really plain and tasting really nasty, but I'll drink that right after my workout and then go home and eat dinner.
Okay. What would a typical dinner be for you?
A giant salad.
Really? Okay. And then you've posted a lot of salads on your
Yeah,
on social media. So okay.
yeah. I love my salads because you can make them into a lot of different flavors. You can't get tired of that.
I'm finding that out because I've actually gone back to eating salads, within the last 2 weeks, and I will continue this as I'm on my new diet and stuff. And yeah, it's amazing what you can do. And now they have different, I don't know what kind of dressings you do, if at all, knowing you. But they have this yogurt dressing that I buy. It's like 2.5 grams of fat for a couple of tablespoons. But it's nice. You can add nuts, seeds, and the canned chicken breast or tuna in
Mhm.
there. There's so much variety that you can do with a salad. So I get that. I was never much of a salad person myself, but um,
Yeah,
maybe
well, you hear people say like a salad doesn't fill you up. Like you put enough stuff in that
yes,
salad, it'll fill you up.
yeah,
And it's a nice one. Like if my like meal plan changed throughout the day for whatever reason, it's a pretty versatile kind of meal where I can say like, well, I want to cut a little more fat out of that or add some more carbs in or something. But yeah, I use oil and vinegar
okay,
season, and we have a pretty awesome store around here that does the oils and all kinds of. It's called Olivina, and um, they have all kinds of balsamics and stuff. I just love it. I love vinegar.
Wow. Yeah, well, and vinegar is good for you too. I mean, I wake up in the morning and gag down a shot of apple cider vinegar, mixed with water or whatever, flavored water. Speaking of that, do you drink like I do the like Crystal Light type? Because in order for me, I'm not a good water drinker for just plain water. So I do the Crystal Light, sugar-free, whatever, in my waters to make me drink more water. Do you do anything like that, or you just drink water?
No, I have a hard time remembering. Like I like have a water bottle attached to me at all times, and like I keep track of it. I try to drink 10 cups of water a day, and if I kind of have like a schedule of like, oh, I'm behind drinking water today. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little too obsessive on little details, but I could go the whole day and just forget like what I'm doing until I have a headache. And like I haven't had any water, but yeah, like I have added stuff in, but actually the Crystal Light I tried in college or something, and it like made my stomach not real happy. So
a lot of people say that about that stuff. Fortunately, it works. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's a lot of the like artificial sweeteners and stuff. Part of the reason I try to stay away from it is just because it doesn't really agree with me, which I guess is good if you're going to pick something that you're.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I think I've seen you post pizzas and stuff. Are you a pizza eater? Am I right on that?
Sometimes, yeah.
I mean, like more of a healthy pizza, right?
Yeah. Like we've tried making pizza at home. It's not the best, but if somebody like if Brian brings home a pizza, I'm gonna be sitting there like like the thing where like you just have a bite. And then just another bite. You might as well have just eaten the whole piece. But yeah, it's not like my favorite food though that I like really look forward to. So I'm pretty safe there.
If you were on death row and we're going to pick a last meal, what would you pick?
Ooh. Yeah, it'd have to have ice cream for sure.
Oh, that's right. You are you post a lot of ice cream stuff. That's right. Yeah. You can plug that place you go, so maybe they'll give you some freebies once in a while.
Oh, hey, it's cool. Well, so it's a small local business called Indulgence Ice Cream in Columbus. If you're in the area, you gotta try it. It's really good. But yeah, like all different flavor combinations and everything, even has dairy free. That's really good.
Wow.
Yeah, but like chocolate peanut butter, dark chocolate ice cream. Yeah, I don't like get sucked into a lot of the sweet things like cakes and cookies and stuff. It's like, I might have a bite here and there, but the ice cream is really when we don't have ice cream in the house, it's a bad thing.
That's your go-to. That's funny. Well, actually, first of all, do you take vitamins like supplements or anything like that?
Yeah. Again, like when I first started lifting and everything, I worked at a Supplement Central, a supplement store. So it was all around me every day. And lately I kind of, besides my branched chain aminos and glutamine and stuff like that, I take vitamin C, or not vitamin C, vitamin D and magnesium and calcium and stuff like that. But I've gotten to more where I pick like the specific vitamin instead of saying like I'm just going to take a multivitamin or take this thing with like a big long label on it that has a million things. I just kind of go for like here's like the one thing that I think I need now and go do it that way rather than just having everything.
I take a lot of vitamins and stuff, but I kind of am in the same thinking pattern as you are, where I do have a multivitamin I take, but that's just kind of like just whatever. But I have my zinc, my 50 milligrams a day of zinc, and I take that with turmeric because I hear that shuttles it in your system better. And so, yeah, I have my everything's, pretty regimented that way. And I have my aminos also that I take. Last question about diet and stuff. Since you eat so clean anyway, what happens when you want to go down a weight class, or have you ever dieted for a weight class before? You just kind of go with what you weigh in?
I have to start. I mean, when you're training for something like Raw Nationals, you're starting like months and months, if not like a year out. Like not like your big lifts for that whole time, but you're getting ready. And that's part of it. Like if I have to diet down, you have to. Well, you don't have to. It's good to plan it out so that you're going down little by little. And that's, with me, I can't just cut out like sodas and drop pounds in a month because I don't ever drink them.
Right. Yeah, you eat so clean anyway. It's like, what do you cut out, or do you just cut everything in half?
No, I really like, I'll cut fats a little bit, and because everything I eat is pretty clean, but I'll cut down, sometimes I'll go eat out and that'll go out. The ice cream goes away eventually.
That's funny. Well, yeah, interesting. Let's talk about some of your favorite gyms that you've lifted in your whole career, like some of your favorite gyms. We'll talk about that. Because everybody's got at least they should have with memories and stuff associated to different gyms. And so thinking back, like what would be a couple of the most memorable favorite gyms that you have lifted in across the United States, whatever?
Well, I don't know. Anywhere I go, I liked it. Well, I mean, I'm training, so I find a gym wherever I am. But so it's cool to visit. I don't know. It's like it's cool to see the gyms, but then it's new and you don't know where anything is. I'm really shy, so I kind of it's like a balance of that was cool, but it was kind of uncomfortable. So I really like. So it's actually back where I'm from in Darlington, Pennsylvania, called Brickyard Gym. And so when I'm in town, I'll go there to lift. It's a really cool place. It's not that big, which I like, but because it has everything you need. It's got your, where places to deadlift. You don't get thrown out for deadlifting. Like that has happened to me.
Right. Did you have the lunk alarm go off at Planet Fitness or something?
Yeah, I forget. It was one of the chain, something. But yeah, but at Brickyard, I like how like the smaller gyms, and he's really made it a cool facility that there's all kinds of different historic kind of lifting things like with.
Oh, I love that stuff.
And like just different posters and different weights, and like the Zuver deadlift stuff is there, not the original one, but like a replica.
Interesting. So do you know a little bit about Zuver and that kind of stuff? I mean, the old plates and that.
Yeah, wow. I mean, a little bit. I'm not like a historian by any means, but yeah. I find that really interesting. It's any kind of history I think is cool. So especially when it's something I do.
That's amazing. Someone like of your age bracket is really into the lifting history like that. You don't see that very. Usually it's guys, even older than me that you talk about the real old stuff. And I'm a kind of a collector of things. I have some really neat items. I have, Northwest related, because I'm kind of really into the Northwest and especially Oregon history of weightlifting and stuff. And my ex-wife, she was the first woman in the Northwest to bench press 300 pounds in competition and make it legit. And even though we're not together anymore, I still have the bench press she did it on because I was able to purchase it from the facility, and she signed it for me. And I have that in my living room. But I've got some other cool stuff too from things like that. So the Zuver stuff is really interesting. And as long as we're talking about that, Zuver's gym out of California, I believe it was. Am I right on that? Does that sound right? Out of California. There's in the first ever World's Strongest Man contest, there was they used these plates, and it was they said Zuver's Gym on it, and it had like a bodybuilder character, and the hole was in the middle, like where his belly or whatever it would be. And they use those in the World's Strongest Man contest, along with the famous giant, which I'll show a picture of here. This giant in the background of these. This is the first ever World's Strongest Man contest. Lou Ferrigno is in it, Franco Colombo, and there's the giant in the background that was originally at Zuver's Gym. And the neat story about that is it was brought over. I know the guy who went down there, purchased a bunch of Zuver plates, and he owned a gym. His name was Doug Casey, and he owned a gym called Casey's Gym. Real small facility, kind of like what you described earlier, is that small hardcore atmosphere. Holes in the wall from the guys punching the walls, getting all aggressive. And so anyway, Doug Casey went down to, because apparently that stuff went up for sale. And he went out down in California, purchased it all, hauled the giant back here. I mean, that thing is huge. I don't even remember the exact dimensions on it, but we know you're 5 foot, so we'll do a comparison here in a minute. But he brought back all this, and then he ended up getting his gym at a different location and calling it Giant's Gym. And all his shirts, everything had the giant on it. He had the giant in front of his gym. It was the neatest thing. It was just a Portland, like here where I live, Portland, Oregon, just like a historical monument, especially for the weightlifters, And then he eventually sold that gym, and the giant went to a different location. It was on the roof for a while. The guy got in trouble for having it on the roof by the city. The city didn't want it too dangerous. That thing is big and it's pretty heavy. So it had to take it off the roof, and he had it inside the gym. Well, it was so tall that it went up into the rafters where he had to take like some ceiling tiles out. So they had to go up into the ceiling tiles. So it was there for the longest time. And then they finally sold it, and they did a big story on here, how it was leaving, and they showed him, taking it away. And it was sad for us, people my age that worked out in the gyms when we were like younger than you, that had the giant there. So we were kind of almost in tears, Okay, we were in tears. But anyway, then all of a sudden, I don't know what year it was, but I look on your social media and bam, there, because the giant had been painted. I want to say that. Let's go back to the first picture here. That is originally what he looked like. He had the blue trunks and all that. Well, even when it was here, it had been painted, and I kind of wish they wouldn't have done it, but it was all chipped up and everything. So I can see why they would have, but it would have been neat to keep the original, how it appeared in the World's Strongest Man. But anyway, they painted it gold. I believe that was done before it left here. I'm really sure of that. But anyway, you figure you're 5 foot. So this tells a story right here. So tell me about how you just randomly went to a gym, and what gym it was, and came across this giant. Talk, and how big of where is it, first of all? And then what was it? What's it like there now? Is it like, it was a big deal when it was here in Portland. Is it a big deal there?
It's actually the gym I was talking about, the Brickyard Gym. That's where he is now. So
okay.
He's in Darlington, in a little town in Pennsylvania. It's about an hour outside of Pittsburgh. And I think a lot of people in the area have no idea what it is and like why it's historic.
Wow.
And because it's just like he's got a chiropractic office up on top, and then the gym is down in the bottom. And I think it's really cool. Like when I was back home, and my dad took me over to see the new gym, and we drove down the road, and when I saw that, I was like, wait, what? So yeah, I thought it was really cool. I think it's on the National Registry of something, roadside auctions or something like that.
Since it's been back there, you mean?
Uh-huh.
That is so cool. That's great information. I need to add that to my knowledge of this giant, because I did not know that. That is really cool. It was definitely a Portland icon before it disappeared on us. But it's neat. It's neat that whoever got it. I wonder whether they paid for it, but it's neat whoever the new owner is, that he's doing something cool with it like that, and still at a gym and all that. Mm-hmm. So wow, very cool, very cool. Yeah, talk about that. I think let's say, okay, we'll talk about, we'll wind down here in a little bit, but talk about, okay, if you type into Google, like women deadlifter or woman deadlifter or anything with similar to that, this pops up. Boom. There's this gal deadlifting, and it deadlifts because somewhere a girl is warming up with your max weight. This is actually a really famous on the internet famous picture. So how did this come about? And before you start talking about that, it's even in this form.
Yeah.
You've seen that too. Okay.
I have not seen my face look like that, but
You're right. I know. Yeah. With the Titan, the belt, I mean, the stance, everything is you. I mean, this picture. So tell me about this. What's the story behind this?
Yeah, so that's at Sally's Fitness Center in Pittsburgh. I lifted out of there for a couple of years when I lived in Pittsburgh. And it actually was, I think the other picture, if you notice the difference of the weights, because I don't know who made that, but somebody had photoshopped on a little more weight than I had lifted. But I mean, it was still, what was that? Almost 3 something. Anyway, to start with, but then somebody photoshopped on a couple more plates.
Well, so so obviously it was a picture. You're probably working out. Somebody took the picture and you.
Yeah. I knew about the original picture.
Right.
Of the meme. I think the first time I heard about it, somebody I had gone to college with had messaged me like, "Isn't this you?" Like, it is, but what is it?
That's funny. Well, it's internet famous. So you're famous. If not for your lifting, you're famous for this picture. That's pretty cool though. Your love for animals. I have a car club here. My family and I have a car club here. It's nothing but movie and TV theme cars. You know, like the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine, Knight Rider car. My sister and I have movie from Quentin Tarantino, cars from the Quentin Tarantino movie Death Proof, and another friend of mine has the Yanko Camaro from Too Fast, Too Furious, and we had a Herbie the Love Bug, but unfortunately the owner passed away, so we don't have that anymore. But the list kind of goes on from there a little bit. That being said, we do an annual car show every year, and because we have a love for animals, my family and I are Dachshund dachshund, the wiener dogs, lovers of those dogs. But we're a lover of all animals and dogs especially, and the money that we raise from hosting our car show each year, except it's unfortunate that last year we weren't able to have it because of this lockdowns. We give to a local animals shelter there where they foster and adopt out dogs, and it's mainly a dog one, but they do other ones too, other animals also, but mostly focus on dogs. And so I know that you have a love for animals, and I think dogs especially, but I think just animals in general. I think we all in our hearts, if we love us, just because we love dogs doesn't mean we don't like other animals either. We have an overall love for animals. And I know you've actually worked in the field because of that passion. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and tell us about it?
Yeah, so I've worked mostly with dogs. Like I've worked in shelters for a couple of years now, working with behavior issues and different. Like when I was in Houston, it's one of the worst cities for stray animal population. So it's a lot different now that I'm up north, but you still have some issues that are the same everywhere. So right now I work at a humane society and I run the dog program. So I do a lot of the intake and the behavior and trying to get everybody adopted.
Over there, it's almost impossible these days because unfortunately my dog, is my sister's and I dog, Dachshund, passed away probably, gosh, coming up on 2 years ago now, and it's hard to find a Dachshund dachshund to to adopt around here. I don't know if the breed's gotten so popular. I know you see a lot of stuff on the internet, about them and on YouTube, but they're just, do you see much of them in your area?
We'll get them in sometimes. It's one of those the smaller breeds. They're just in and out. It's like you have to have a connection or work with a breed specific rescue where all they deal with is a certain breed, because like a lot of the smaller dog breeds are in such demand in the north, especially, even in the south.
Why do you think it is the small? I grew up with the dachshund. I mean, I have a baby picture of me with a dachshund, on right after my parents brought me home, that they were trying to introduce the dog so it wouldn't eat me if they didn't weren't around in the room at the time. So they were and I've got a picture of that. So I literally grew up with dachshunds, and my mom has one still to this day. My sister has one. What is it with smaller breeds that are so popular in your opinion, just from being around your work and stuff?
I think a lot of people, like, you get some people that are in apartments and they want something that's going to fit in their housing, or they have housing restrictions where you can't have anything above 30 pounds, or certain breeds are restricted. And then you get some people that are just their lifestyle. They either don't want to go out and run 3 miles with their dog every day, or they're older and they still want to have a dog, but they can't, like a 40-pound dog on a leash is going to be something that they're not going to be able to deal with. So
that makes sense. Speaking of breeds, like you said, little dogs are easy to adopt out. What about the breed of dog? Now, these are tough breeds to get adopted, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they are. I mean, they're both mixes, really. It's, unless you do a DNA test, and those aren't really even 100% accurate yet. It's really cool, like how genetics with dogs are going. But yeah, those two they're from Houston. That's Eva is the white one, and Edie's the brindle.
Okay.
And we're a very normal household at the moment with just 2 dogs. And I think Eva was in with a rescue group for about half a year before I saw her, and we immediately had to have her.
Oh, wow.
It was like one of those things where you see in movies. I just like saw her with the rescue group and was like, I need this dog right now. And of course they're suspicious because they're a bully type, and they're like, why? What are you looking for them for?
Oh, yeah. That's the way my mom was with her dog. We adopt dogs also. We don't ever like go to a breeder or anything. My mom went to the rescue place to get her dachshund, and it had a cone on its head. It had just been fixed, and she just fell in love with it. I have to have that dog, and she got it. She was determined to get it once she saw it too. I forgot to include this picture earlier when we were talking about competitions. Obviously, did you just get a great lift? Did you just win the whole contest? What happened here?
It was actually a deadlift that I don't know if it's a good. It's good and a bad thing. I can really grind out a lift. So that was at Raw Nationals, I think, 2019, when it was in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And so that's Gino and it was probably like a minute-long lift. It was just really, really long lift, and I ended up getting it in the end. So everybody was going crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's it. Kind of shows the feeling that a good lift can get you right there. Yeah. And when people ask, well, why do you do it? Well, look at the joy it brings when you accomplish something big like that.
Yeah,
it's really cool. Yeah, wow. Have you ever thought about doing a bodybuilding show since you're so lean all the time?
People have asked me. I really don't think. I've thought about it because, yeah, people are like, well, you already do almost half of it. I'd have to change some nutrition things, obviously, but not much. And I don't know, just that being on stage kind of thing. I guess you are when you're lifting, but I just kind of block everything out. When you have to be like working with the judges and, working with the audience and everything, I don't know.
No, I don't blame you. I'm not really into the bodybuilding scene myself, but for whatever reasons. But no, I think I'm glad you went the direction of powerlifting to represent that sport as a female. I think that's a really good thing. Anything, it's hard to say now because of the lockdowns and everything, but any contests, are you going to do it? Are you retired, or as far as lifting competitively, or anything?
Not retired. But yeah, like I think my last meet was in November, and the plan was to get ready for Raw Nationals. It was canceled October of last year, and then they're planning it for this year. But I don't know. We just decided, like, I've been working with Greg Page as my coach, and we kind of decided to work on some technique and really get back to conditioning and work on
Good.
the issues that come up, try to get everything really worked on in off season and see where this year goes.
I'm showing your Instagram and Facebook if people want to friend request you or follow you on your social media. I think you should post more on social media myself. You're fun to see posts. You post kind of some funny things once in a while. I mean, you have a good sense of humor, I guess is what I'm trying to say. As far as like little funny things your dogs will say in your mind, think they're saying or whatever. Yeah, in powerlifting, as far as retiring or whatever, I always think it's good to have an exit plan at some point. And you never know a lot. You don't necessarily know when that will be, but I know I went out on a high note. It was a really neat feeling, and I can reflect back on it versus going out like on an injury or on a bad meet or something. And I'm not saying you should have a good meet and be like, oh, I had a really good meet, so I'm gonna retire.
Right.
I had a good meet. Nah, in my mind, I had set all the goals I had for myself in powerlifting. I did it for 14 years. This is going to sound really ancient to you, but I competed from 1981 to 1995. Those are my competitive years. And my last contest, I mean, I will say it's so cool because every goal I set for myself in powerlifting, I achieved. And it's not because I set my goals too low. I set them pretty high because I didn't just set a goal. Like one of my first big goals was to squat 600 pounds in the 181 pound class. I was just getting ready to turn 21 years old at the time. It took me a couple contests to do that in. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to do it in this contest and then that's my goal achieved. No, it took probably 3, maybe even 4. I think 3 contests to finally get that 600 squat. And then I was ready to move up into some higher weight classes and stuff. And when fast forward 14 years later to 1995, it was 1994, February of 94, when I broke 500 in the bench press originally, that was the biggest goal for a long time. That goal that was a number of years before I finally achieved that goal. So, I mean, I had to work. Once I set a goal, I didn't set it low. I set it high enough to where it was going to be a lot of work to get to it. Finally got there. Well, then I thought, okay, I want a 550 bench. Worked a couple of years to get that. Took a couple of different contests, some highs and lows on some contests it took to get to that. Finally got it. It was in a Gus Rethwish meet. It wasn't a Wabdell meet, though. It was before he had Wabdell created that. It was a APF/USPF sanctioned contest in Tri-Cities, Washington here. And I finally got that 551 bench. It was because of kilos, 551. I was so happy. And I'm like, wow, what? And at that point, I wasn't quite finished with powerlifting yet. So I'm like, well, what do I do from here? And do I go for a 600 pound bench press? I'm like, gosh, it took me literally years from 500 to 550. Because I wasn't real big on the gear. I just the single ply shirt the last couple contests. And and that was it. But I'm like, man, but at that point, I had gotten in that was in 94 when I did the 552. In 92, I had my first wife had left me. So I was single. So I'm like, and I was in the 275-pound weight class. So I had my belly going, everything you need for the bench press, because that was the number one goal. I finally got that. I'm like, should I go for a 600-pound bench press or should I diet down to 242? Because I weighed 269 when I did the 551. Or should I diet down to 242 and go for a 500? And I'm thinking, well, I am single. Maybe it's time to like trim up a little bit and at least look a little better and have it go. So I chose to go to do a 500 bench in the lighter weight class. Because the first time I had ever done a 500 bench in a competition, it's 1988, I believe. And I weighed 262, I believe. And so I'm like, if I could go down to 242 and do a 500 bench, that shows how much strong that I actually got. Mm-hmm. So I did that, went down to 240, over dieted, weighed in at 233, which thankfully I did because that's how I won the contest. But what got my 500, that's all I cared about was just going down to 242, getting the 500 bench. Finally got it in that contest and ended up winning the contest and beating a powerlifting legend around here because we both lifted the same, and he weighed 236 and I weighed 233. So it worked out well. That long story being said, I knew I was done at that point with powerlifting. I set all my goals, reached them all. I didn't really want to reset. It was time for me to move on to something else at that point. So I was able to go out on that high note with those three things: a win, like the lift I did, and beating that guy. So I always try to encourage people a little bit to maybe, and it could be years from now, and you wouldn't have to to have a contest that's your retirement contest when it comes that time, because it really is a neat feel. It really is satisfying when you walk away from something competitively with a memory like that behind you. And not many people do that. I know a lot of people that tend to kind of keep going and going and going as their body is breaking down with age. I mean, you're still really young, but people, in their 40s and 50s around here still doing it, and their bodies are just getting tore up, and it's like I always kind of like to think of powerlifting and things like that as kind of I don't know, I don't really want to say launching pad, but kind of just something that puts you into something else. Because what a great, in your 20s and 30s, man, powerlifting is great. But I think as you get older, you need to use that. Because I used it and got into professional wrestling after that. And then, now I have my book, podcasts, and things like that. So anyway, just something to think about. Sorry for the long-winded story, but food for thought, I guess you could say, for you and the audience of lifters that might be watching. So,
yeah. Hey, speaking of that, how about this?
Oh my gosh, look at that! For the people that do not know, that was the T-shirts and oh wow, that's so cool. You still have that. That I'm humbled by that. That was my logo and T-shirts I sold when I was doing professional wrestling. Under Tod Rule, that was RUHL was my the Portland Powerhouse was my moniker or whatever. But that was that was the logo. Thank you for still having that, and I remember sending that to you. Wow, I'm very humbled by that. It's an honor for this many years later. So that would have been about 2007ish. Does that sound about right?
Probably, yeah.
And so wow, that's awesome, Natty. Thank you. I guess we'll wind down here. I thank you so much for being a part of my first episode. This will be posted on YouTube. Anything you want to plug or anything, feel free. I mean, your social media, your places you go to eat, like the ice cream place, anything, anyone you like to thank, or the gym you whatever, just anything you want to. Do you get sponsored?
I mean, right now I don't have sponsors. It's kind of like that. When you start out, you're like, I need to find as many sponsors as I can. And I don't know, I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, if somebody's going to sponsor me, like I do my own thing, and I don't have to answer to anybody. And if I'm going to have a sponsor, it's going to be somebody that I do believe in, everything that they do and what they make or whatever. Um, so yeah, right now I don't have any sponsors, but like we talked about a lot. Like I lift at 614 barbell right now. Um, it's well in my house. um, yeah, I haven't really been using that much gear lately either, so it's kind of it's a little freeing compared to like you can only say this, you can only say you use whatever supplement, but
Yeah, I could see where that would be the case. There isn't, but I know you do take vitamins and like we talked about earlier. You like your ice cream. Anything like that. Any companies out there that might be watching this, here's her Instagram and Facebook scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So hit her up, man. If I know if I had a company and it was a supplement company or something like that, I would want you on board with it because I mean you're a great representative. Your strength, and your contest lifts speak for themselves. The pictures I showed earlier with you with the abs and the muscularity. I mean, you're just a really good representation of powerlifting. And really as a positive person and life in general, because you're such a neat gal and I'll be the first to say it because of your pictures. I mean, the fact that you do look younger and all that, you're very cute. I mean, because you're this little 5 foot, 100 and whatever you're weighing, 110 pound gal who can lift a lot of weight. So, I mean, if, like I said, any companies out there that might be interested in this gal, I would jump on board, hit her up on social media and get her going, man. Anyway, Natty, thank you so much for being part of this. And I can't thank you enough. And the shirt you wore, I mean, that's just freaking awesome. And you're the best, man. I mean, I just can't thank you enough. I mean, I appreciate your friendship all these years. And every time I've emailed you or whatever, you've always written back up with a timely response. You helped promote my book a little bit for me. That was really cool. You've always been there. And even though we've never even met in person, I just think you're an awesome person. And thank you again for being my first guest on episode 1.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be the first guest.
Yeah, we'll be in touch, and I'd like to have you back if you're at all interested down a few episodes down the road. And I'm also really quick here. I'm also going to do shows where we talk about certain subjects on stuff, and I'll bring in like a few multiple guests that to talk about what their thoughts on that particular subject. Lifting and as our car show gets closer, I'll probably this show is mainly about lifting, Power Rack podcast, obviously, but I am going to veer off on few different topics too. And one of them might be rescue animals and things like that. And it'd be fun to bring you on with like my sister and stuff like that to promote our car show. And even though you wouldn't be here, but just talk about rescue animals in general, and stuff like that. So there'll be subject related shows that I'd like to bring you in on also, if that's cool. We'll talk about that. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again. And I will say goodbye to you for now and enjoy the rest of your day and your week. And I'll check in with you every once in a while to keep track of your training.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.